Finally, I'm all done with crests. I never want to do another dungeon again. What was that? Who's out there? Oh shit, sorry man, is this a bad time? I can come back later. What up gamers? I'm Aaron, and it's that time of the expansion where all of a sudden everything we've been doing for the last 2 years is the shittest thing you've ever played. And surely Midnight's gonna fix everything, right? You see this a lot in Classic. Gamer dads will jerk off Baron's questing for 20 years and tell you that flying ruined the game. But as soon as TBC Classic is around the corner, it's, I love Hellfire Peninsula. Well, the War Within was actually pretty damn solid, but in the spirit of the season, we're gonna complain about it anyways. So here are the 5 shittest points of an otherwise very solid expansion. Alright, so number 5. One of the unique things about World of Warcraft is the fact that a lot of the time the thing that makes your experience way shitter is also something that adds a lot to it. A great example of this was the Covenant system from Shadowlands. See, when you're in Raid and you get a nice A-bomb limb and you just stack everything real nice, it feels amazing. You want to drive straight to Blizzard Entertainment and kiss Ian on his beautiful face. But then you learn that you need to be Night Fae for Mythic Plus, and you can't swap for 2 weeks. So now you're still driving to the Blizzard offices, except this time you've got a bomb strapped to your chest, and they've got 30 minutes to hotfix this, or you're gonna do something drastic. This carries on all the way to today, where we get to probably the most controversial item on our list of shitty War Within features, and that's gonna be delves.
Let's go!
While they did make my worst list, they'd probably also cut it on a best list if one of those was made. Most people either love delves because they let them do the end game at their own pace, or they hate them and they do as little as possible because they just see it as a shittier version of the content they actually prefer. Personally, while I think it's awesome that delves allow more people to engage with the end game, the implementation leaves so much to be desired. I feel like delves from the War Within and scenarios from Mists of Pandaria are like 2 halves of a shitty, incomplete system. The War Within got the more fleshed out game mechanics with, the companion in Bran and the curios, and Mists of Pandaria got the more interesting environments and situations, as well as gameplay that's a little more complex than getting auto-attacked to death by sporelings in a cave for the entire expansion. I actually really hope that delves get expanded on in Midnight, and it's not just because I think the Nemesis bosses are cool, but it's because I really do think the target audience for delves deserve good content, and as is, these are basically just underground world quests with a difficulty scaling. I'd love to see delves able to become like a single player endgame branch, rather than just a stepping stone for gearing into anything else. On to number 4. I don't think a single person would argue that the zones of the War Within weren't fucking sweet for the first month. I also don't think anyone would argue that they had any staying power beyond that first month. Very quickly, these zones just turned into beautiful loading screens between your next dungeon, delve, or whatever the hell you were doing. I mean, think about the zone events here. Something like Waking the Machine was like the pillar of the Ringing Deeps, and this shit was boring and piss easy 3 hours into day 1 of the expansion. Compare that to something like Dragonflight's Community Cooking, which had more soul than all of these zones combined. Or, the fucking Dream Surge, or the Farak Assaults. The closest we ever came to that was the Flames Radiance Reputation, and even that is just the 19th reskin of the Researchers Under Fire event. I can't help but compare these zones to something like Mechagon or Naj'Atar from BFA. These zones obviously had their own problems, but you can go back now to grind these out and see the level of thought that was put into all of these zones. The actual gameplay there blows something like Undermine out of the water. I mean, Undermine looks great, but other than that, is completely shallow. It still has insane grinds to max out, but there's so little depth to them whatsoever. Meta achievements were a really fun thing to work towards for all of these zones. I still love riding my Mechagon wheel, but the meta achievement for Undermine can be completed in 15 minutes. And as for Koresh, if they wanted to make a zone that felt like a dead planet with no life whatsoever, they did a great job. I have a feeling that the zones, as well as really the entire legacy of the War Within, will boil down to one word: unambitious. We got our new zone every patch, we got our mandatory 8 raid bosses and our 8 dungeons, and not much else that mattered beyond that. Hero talents were without a doubt the most boundary-pushing feature of this expansion, and a ton of those are just becoming cosmetic options in Midnight, so I think that that's a really disappointing mark on the expansion as a whole. But if you want something that's not unambitious, well then let me tell you about Razzuncember, where this dumbass, who can barely push out 3 videos a month, is going to be releasing 5 in December alone, including a lovely Christmas special that I would love to have you join me for. So, feel free to join these 890 plus other beautiful people in following me wherever my dumbass goes. Was that one okay? It was alright? Okay, yeah, we'll tell him. Alright, so my handlers have given me the go-ahead to go on to number 3. Now, I could go on for a while about any number of issues that have arisen over the War Within's Mythic Plus, and I will in just a moment, but first I have to say, the 8 initial launch dungeons of the War Within were probably the worst set of dungeons that we have ever had since Mythic Plus was implemented. And there's some hard expansions to beat. I mean, Shadowlands had Spire of Ascension and Theater of Pain, but the War Within came in strong with Stonevolt and City of Threads. Now, bugs in Mythic Plus have been a thing forever, but a lot of the time in the past, it was fun, quirky, cute bugs like, you know, if you do XYZ, this boss won't cast abilities. But in the War Within, bugs are more like, you know, I am stuck in permanent combat and being shadow bolted from 3,000 yards away by a Dawnbreaker mob that is stuck underground. And I'm not even gonna go deeper on the bugs. You know, the design for these dungeons alone is like an AI was trained in a lab to remove any fun or creativity in developing a strategy for them. People like to do shroud skips in the past. Here's 19 stealth detect mobs in every room. Nobody pulled a mini boss? Let's put it where they can't skip it and make the boss not spawn till it dies. People had too much fun pulling big here? Let's add unavoidable rot damage that will kill you instantly. And, you know, CC rotations have been a thing for a few years now. It's not new to the War Within. But the War Within, I think, is special for removing any counterplay that was not just CC the mobs. Looking back at Dragonflight, especially in Season 3, there were a lot of packs that you needed to lock down. But there was also a lot of packs that you needed to handle in other fun and complex ways. Things like Black Rook Hold ledges to avoid leaps, bear kiting in Halls of Valor, or using your CC abilities to stop the War Spears in no-coup defensive. But in the War Within, when a mob decides it's gonna fuck you up, you cannot stop it. You can only delay it by an infinite CC chain that any disruption will immediately have every single one of you killed. And even though the dungeons got a lot better and there were a lot of changes made in Season 2 to make things better, you know, the fact that pushing keys became CC Management Simulator burned a ton of players out on the game mode. This is very likely my personal most exciting feature for Midnight. I mean, you can already see an improvement in just Floodgate and Ecodome, that the launch dungeons for the War Within were like a specific isolated incident of terrible game design. I want my friends to want to do dungeons again, and I'm hopeful that the Midnight dungeons will push us more in that direction, where we can play the game rather than play CC Spreadsheet Manager. So knowing that that's getting better, let's get to the 2 most shitty features of the War Within. Alright, number 2. If there was one thing that Blizzard consistently missed the mark on throughout the entirety of this expansion, it would be the difficulty curve for all content. That's right, all content. You probably know this mostly because of the raid boss brick walls that appear around halfway through the raid, but raid difficulty curve has never really been their strong suit. I mean, in Amirdrasil, we had 30 pull Laredar into 200 pull Smolderon into back-to-back 400 pull end bosses. But it was very rare that they would ever have 3 to 4 bosses get actually one-shot, followed by the unlubed bad dragon that was pre-nerf Brood Twister, or pre-nerf Styx, or pre-nerf Forge Weaver. The earliest iterations of these bosses are seen by pretty much nobody, and of the people that see it, even fewer kill it, but they sure do get to waste their time pulling it. What we're doing here is basically like the equivalent of Roman Colosseum battles. We've got our 20 to 40 favorite gamers, and we're watching them try to fight a lion with no weapons whatsoever. all of the unwashed masses, aka LFR raiders, plus 4 key puggers, and Race to World First Twitch viewers will cheer when the lion rips I'm Fired Up's arms off. But eventually, when they get a pull in which this lion is slain, the lion is nerfed into smithereens. Which makes you wonder, why did we ask these guys to fight a lion in the first place? 6 months in, the lion is starving and emaciated, but even that can sometimes be very frightening for noob guilds, like the ones that struggled on Brood Twister or Styx Bunk Junker until the very end of the season. But anyway, the difficulty curve didn't just suck in Raid. I mean, both Season 2 and 3 Mythic Plus were both scaled up so little that you could basically get your Keystone Master or Keystone Hero achievement in the same gear you ended the last season. This led to tons of players finishing all their goals within like 2 weeks of the season. So if you missed the high key pushing boat, you were basically just left in the LFG Mad Max hellscape with only people who needed 70 extra item levels to time a 10. And oh my god, how could I forget the giant brick wall that was 12 keys in Season 1? There were thousands of really good players in the first couple weeks that had every single 11 key 2-chested and could not get one pug group to time a 12. Now that season was kind of fucked from the ground up, but it's safe to say that that didn't help, even if it was fixed relatively quickly. It's safe to say that no matter where you were at on the totem pole, the difficulty curve has in some way made your experience worse this expansion. And the difficulty curve is actually a great segue into our number one shittest feature of the expansion, which is the motherfucking Turbo Boost. The Turbo Boost is just the newest iteration of a Blizzard tendency I've realized recently. You see, it's where they innovate a cool-ass feature or event, and they just repeat it with less and less effort until it just makes everything worse. Remember Shadowlands Faded? That shit was cool. You had raid affixes, a really interesting loot upgrade system, you had 8 new dungeons, new seasonal affix, and new talents for every spec in the game. But fast forward to Dragonflight Faded, and they couldn't even bother to change the god comp we'd been playing for 8 months at that point. And because of that, we'll probably never see Faded again. Turbo Boost is the exact same. When it came around the first time, it was a late season addition to the Undermine patch that really felt like a nice power boost for the twilight hours of the patch. It came with a belt, it came with some delve shit most people didn't care about, and an admittedly awkward implementation of dinars. But now we bring it back for Season 3, and we send it so early that most people weren't even done gearing the first time. You get this close to thinking you're done farming eco-domes, and then here comes Turbo Boost, and you get right back at it. This time, they didn't even have the decency to uncap crests right when it happened. They just raised the item levels, so you got to watch all the people who were already fully geared get more geared, meanwhile you, with your 5 bad great volts in a row, are struggling to hit your 720 upgrade achievement. And that's just like the effort side of the problem. That doesn't even get into how ridiculous Turbo Boost has made Raid Reclear. Reclear after Turbo Boost doesn't even resemble the same raid. I mean, bosses die so fast it's fucking absurd. You are relearning cooldown timings every single week. Nothing kills you and nothing matters. This next thing is gonna sound elitist, but the number of people that Turbo Boost puts in front of bosses they should never see is absurd. And I don't care about that for me. It doesn't bother me if some bozo gets further in the raid, but the amount of issues that have stemmed from people seeing bosses that they belong nowhere near is absurd. I mean, there are guilds that in a regular season would never kill Forge Weaver, and now, after being power crept by Turbo Boost and 15% raid renown, they are now wiping 75 times a night to Nexus King. That's not fun for them, but every boss before that has become so easy that if you can just keep 15 people alive for 3 or 4 minutes, it falls over. There are so few things that Turbo Boost 2 actually improved that I would argue it was just a straight up downside to the entire season. I will be shocked if we see Turbo Boost return a 3rd time, and I don't want to see it return again. Especially with the crest changes on beta, oh my god, we will be gearing until the day we die. But other than that, The War Within was pretty good. There wasn't really a single point that I wouldn't have recommended the game to somebody else. We'll just have to hope that Midnight is a little more exciting and pushes the boundaries a little bit further. But until then, if you'd like to call me an elitist, delve-hating asshole, I would love to hear it. I read every single comment. My name's Aaron, and thanks so much for your time. Peace.
I think it is a little bit